There is a truth about intuitive introverts that Jung discovered, and that explains why finding purpose feels impossible, yet essential at the same time. If you're an INFJ, INFP, INTJ, or INTP, you've probably spent years feeling like everyone else has figured out some secret to life that you're missing. You've watched people around you settle into careers, relationships, and routines that seem to satisfy them, while you remain restless, searching, always feeling like there's something more you're supposed to be doing, but can't quite grasp. If this resonates with you, please hit that subscribe button and give this video a like. Your support helps me continue exploring these deep psychological truths that can transform how you understand yourself. What Jung discovered about your psychological type will change everything you thought you knew about your struggle with purpose. He realized that intuitive introverts don't struggle with meaning because something is wrong with them. They struggle with meaning because they're psychologically wired to access levels of reality that most people never even know exist. You see, Jung identified 4 primary psychological functions: thinking, feeling, sensation, and intuition. Most people are dominated by sensation and thinking. They're focused on the immediate, tangible world around them. They find purpose in concrete achievements, social recognition, material success, and conventional milestones. But you're different. You're dominated by intuition, which means you're constantly perceiving possibilities, patterns, and potentials that exist beyond the surface of everyday reality. This is both your greatest gift and your deepest curse. Your intuitive function allows you to see connections that others miss, to envision futures that others can't imagine, to understand the deeper currents flowing beneath human behavior and social structures. But this same gift makes it almost impossible for you to find satisfaction in the conventional purposes that work for everyone else. Jung called this the burden of the intuitive introvert. You're psychologically compelled to seek meaning at a level that most people never even consider. While others can find purpose in climbing the corporate ladder, you're asking why the ladder exists at all. While others find meaning in social approval, you're questioning the value systems that create that approval. While others are content with surface-level relationships, you're seeking soul-level connections that most people aren't even capable of. This creates what Jung identified as a fundamental existential crisis unique to your type. You can't unsee what you've seen. You can't unfeel the depth of reality that your intuition reveals to you. You can't pretend that conventional purposes are enough when your psyche is constantly showing you glimpses of something infinitely more profound. Think about your own experience for a moment. How many times have you started a job or a relationship or a project with genuine excitement, only to find yourself feeling empty and restless after a few months? How many times have you achieved something that everyone told you would make you happy, only to discover that the achievement felt hollow? How many times have you looked around at your life and wondered why nothing seems to stick? Why nothing seems to truly fulfill you? This isn't because you're ungrateful or because you have unrealistic expectations. This is because your psychological type is designed to function at a different level of reality than most people operate from. You're like someone who's been given the ability to see in color, being forced to live in a black and white world. The conventional purposes that satisfy others literally don't engage the parts of your psyche that need to be engaged for you to feel truly alive. But here's what most people don't understand about your struggle, and what Jung spent decades trying to explain. Your difficulty finding purpose isn't a bug in your psychological system, it's a feature. You're not broken because conventional meaning doesn't satisfy you. You're actually functioning exactly as you're supposed to function. Your type exists to push humanity beyond its current limitations, to envision possibilities that don't yet exist, to bridge the gap between what is and what could be. Jung observed that intuitive introverts throughout history have been the mystics, the visionaries, the artists, the philosophers, the inventors who moved civilization forward. They were the ones who couldn't accept the status quo, who saw beyond the limitations of their time, who felt compelled to bring something new into existence, and they all struggled with the same existential restlessness that you're experiencing right now. Consider some of the most influential intuitive introverts in history. Carl Jung himself was an INTP who spent years feeling lost and purposeless before discovering his calling in psychology. Friedrich Nietzsche was an INTJ who struggled with conventional academic life before developing his revolutionary philosophical insights. Virginia Woolf was an INFP who battled depression and meaninglessness before finding her voice as a writer. Marie Curie was an INTJ who felt out of place in conventional society before discovering her passion for scientific research. What all of these individuals had in common was a period of intense struggle with purpose, followed by a breakthrough into authentic expression that changed the world. Their struggle wasn't a detour from their purpose, it was an essential part of discovering their purpose. The problem is that modern society has no framework for understanding or supporting this type of psychological development. We live in a sensation and thinking-dominated culture that values immediate results, concrete achievements, and measurable success. There's no career path for visionary, no college degree in meaning-making, no social recognition for the kind of deep psychological and spiritual work that your type is called to do. This is why you feel so alienated from mainstream culture. You're trying to find your place in a world that doesn't even recognize that your kind of purpose exists. You're looking for meaning in a society that has reduced meaning to material achievement and social status. You're seeking depth in a culture that celebrates superficiality. The educational system, for example, is designed primarily for sensation and thinking types. It rewards memorization, standardized thinking, and conformity to established patterns. But your type learns through exploration, synthesis, and creative connection-making. You need to understand the why behind everything, not just the what and how. You need to see how everything connects to everything else, not just master isolated subjects. The corporate world is even worse for your type. Most jobs are structured around repetitive tasks, hierarchical authority, and measurable outputs. But your type needs autonomy, creative freedom, and work that feels meaningful at a deep level. You can't just punch a clock and collect a paycheck. You need to feel like your work is contributing to something larger than yourself. Even the social world can feel alienating for your type. Most social interactions operate at a surface level, focused on small talk, shared activities, and mutual entertainment. But your type craves deep conversation, authentic connection, and relationships that support mutual growth and understanding. Jung understood that this disconnection from mainstream culture was actually necessary for your psychological development. He called it the process of individuation, the journey of becoming who you truly are, rather than who society expects you to be. For intuitive introverts, this process is particularly intense because your authentic self is so fundamentally different from what the culture values. But here's where it gets really interesting. Jung discovered that your struggle with purpose actually occurs in predictable stages, and understanding these stages can help you navigate your journey with much less suffering and confusion. The first stage he called the stage of conventional adaptation. This is when you try to force yourself to find meaning in the same things that work for everyone else. You pursue traditional career paths. You try to care about material success. You attempt to find satisfaction in social approval and conventional relationships. But no matter how hard you try, something always feels missing. You achieve the goals that are supposed to make you happy, but instead of fulfillment, you feel empty, restless, like you're living someone else's life. Most intuitive introverts spend their 20s and sometimes their 30s stuck in this stage, wondering why they can't just be normal, why they can't find satisfaction in the things that seem to work for everyone else. They often blame themselves, thinking they're too picky, too idealistic, too difficult to please. But Jung understood that this dissatisfaction is actually your psyche's way of protecting you from settling for a life that would slowly kill your soul. During this stage, you might find yourself constantly changing majors in college, never quite finding a field that feels right. You might jump from job to job, always hoping that the next one will finally feel meaningful. You might struggle with relationships because you can't connect with people who seem satisfied with superficial interactions. You might feel like there's something fundamentally wrong with you because you can't just be happy with what you have. But Jung recognized that this restlessness is actually a sign of psychological health, not dysfunction. Your psyche is refusing to settle for anything less than authentic expression because it knows you're capable of so much more. The second stage Jung called the stage of breakdown and breakthrough. This is when the conventional adaptation finally collapses completely. You can no longer pretend that external achievements are enough. You can no longer ignore the voice inside you that's calling for something deeper, something more authentic, something that actually aligns with your true nature. This stage often feels like a crisis, like everything you thought you knew about yourself and your life is falling apart. This breakdown might be triggered by a career crisis, a relationship ending, a health scare, or simply the accumulated weight of years of living inauthentically. You might experience what feels like depression, but Jung understood that this is often actually what he called a spiritual emergency, your psyche's way of forcing you to confront the gap between who you are and who you've been trying to be. During this stage, you might feel completely lost, like you don't know who you are anymore. You might question everything you thought you believed about life, success, relationships, and meaning. You might feel like you're going crazy, because the things that used to matter to you no longer seem important, but you don't yet know what should matter instead. But Jung recognized that this breakdown is actually the beginning of your real journey toward authentic purpose. It's your psyche's way of forcing you to stop looking for meaning in the wrong places and start looking for it in the right place, which is within your own unique psychological structure and spiritual calling. The third stage he called the stage of inner exploration. This is when you finally turn your attention inward and begin to explore the depths of your own psyche. You start paying attention to your dreams, your intuitions, your creative impulses, your spiritual longings. You begin to understand that your purpose isn't something you find out there in the world, it's something you discover within yourself and then express outwardly. This stage requires tremendous courage because it means abandoning the safety of conventional expectations and venturing into psychological territory that most people never explore. It means trusting your inner guidance even when it doesn't make logical sense. It means following your intuition even when you can't explain where it's leading you. During this inner exploration stage, you begin to develop what Jung called a relationship with your unconscious. You start to understand that the restlessness, the dissatisfaction, the sense that something is missing, these aren't problems to be solved, but messages from the deeper parts of your psyche about your authentic path. Jung observed that intuitive introverts who successfully navigate this stage begin to discover what he called their unique contribution to the collective unconscious. They realize that their purpose isn't just personal, it's transpersonal. They're not just trying to find meaning for themselves, they're trying to bring something through themselves that serves the evolution of human consciousness. This is why your struggle with purpose feels so intense and so essential. Your psyche knows that you're capable of accessing and expressing something that the world desperately needs, but that very few people are equipped to provide. Your restlessness isn't random. It's your soul calling you toward your authentic contribution to human evolution. The fourth stage Jung identified is what he called the stage of creative expression. This is when you finally begin to understand how to channel your deep inner knowing into some form of outer expression that serves both your own fulfillment and the greater good. But here's what's crucial to understand. This expression rarely looks like conventional career paths or traditional forms of success. Your purpose as an intuitive introvert is almost always about bridging different levels of reality. You might be called to translate complex psychological insights into accessible language. You might be meant to create art that helps people access deeper emotions. You might be designed to develop new frameworks for understanding human consciousness. You might be here to help others navigate their own spiritual awakening. For INFJs, this often manifests as a calling to help others understand themselves and their potential. You might become a therapist, a coach, a teacher, or a writer who helps people navigate their own psychological development. Your gift is seeing the potential in others and helping them actualize it. For INFPs, the calling often involves creative expression that touches people's hearts and souls. You might become an artist, a musician, a writer, or a filmmaker who creates work that helps people feel less alone in their deepest experiences. Your gift is translating inner emotional reality into forms that others can connect with. For INTJs, the purpose usually involves developing new systems, frameworks, or innovations that improve how things work. You might become an entrepreneur, a researcher, a strategist, or an inventor who creates solutions to complex problems. Your gift is seeing how things could be better and figuring out how to make that vision reality. For INTPs, the calling typically centers around understanding and explaining complex ideas or phenomena. You might become a researcher, a philosopher, a scientist, or a theorist who helps expand human understanding of reality. Your gift is seeing patterns and connections that others miss and articulating them clearly. The key insight that Jung discovered is that your purpose is always about serving as a bridge between the unconscious and conscious, between the inner world and the outer world, between what is and what could be. This is why conventional purposes feel so empty to you. They don't utilize your unique psychological gifts. They don't engage the depths of your being. They don't allow you to fulfill your true function in the larger scheme of human development. But this bridging function comes with unique challenges that Jung spent considerable time exploring. First, you're often ahead of your time. The insights you're receiving, the possibilities you're perceiving, the solutions you're envisioning may not be ready to be received by the collective consciousness. This can leave you feeling isolated, misunderstood, like you're speaking a language that no one else understands. Think about how many revolutionary ideas were initially rejected before being accepted. Jung's own theories about the unconscious were considered radical and unscientific when he first proposed them. Van Gogh sold only one painting during his lifetime. Nikola Tesla's ideas about alternating current were dismissed by the scientific establishment. Being ahead of your time is part of the burden and the gift of your psychological type. Second, your work often can't be measured by conventional metrics. How do you quantify the value of helping someone have a spiritual breakthrough? How do you measure the impact of creating art that touches people's souls? How do you evaluate the success of developing new ways of understanding human psychology? The culture has no framework for recognizing or rewarding this kind of contribution. This can be incredibly frustrating when you're trying to make a living or gain recognition for your work. You might create something that profoundly impacts a few people but doesn't generate significant income or widespread acclaim. You might develop insights that won't be fully appreciated until years or decades later. You might feel like you're working in obscurity, while less meaningful but more marketable work gets all the attention. Third, your path often requires you to work in solitude for long periods without external validation. Jung observed that intuitive introverts need extensive time alone to process their insights, to develop their ideas, to create their contributions. But this solitude can feel like exile in a culture that values constant social interaction and immediate feedback. You might spend months or years developing a project, a theory, or a creative work without knowing whether it will resonate with anyone else. You might have to trust your inner guidance when everyone around you thinks you're wasting your time. You might have to persist through long periods of doubt and uncertainty without any guarantee that your efforts will be appreciated or successful. Jung also discovered something fascinating about the timing of purpose discovery for intuitive introverts. Unlike sensation types who often find their calling early and follow a linear path toward it, intuitive introverts typically don't discover their true purpose until their 30s, 40s, or even later. This is because your purpose is so complex and multifaceted that it requires years of inner development before you're ready to express it authentically. This delayed timeline can be incredibly frustrating when you're comparing yourself to others who seem to have figured everything out in their 20s. You might feel like you're behind, like you're wasting time, like you should have your life together by now. But Jung understood that this extended development period is necessary for your type. You're not just finding a career, you're developing a unique perspective on reality that will inform everything you do for the rest of your life. Consider that Jung himself didn't publish his most important work until he was in his 40s and 50s. Einstein didn't develop his theory of relativity until his mid-20s, which was considered late for a physicist. Many of the world's greatest artists, writers, and thinkers didn't hit their stride until middle age or later. Your timeline is different because your work is different. He also observed that intuitive introverts often have what he called a spiral pattern of development rather than a linear one. You might explore multiple different fields, have several false starts, go through periods of confusion and uncertainty, only to discover later that all of these experiences were necessary preparation for your ultimate contribution. What looks like aimless wandering from the outside is actually a sophisticated process of psychological integration from the inside. Every job you've quit, every relationship that didn't work out, every project you abandoned, every period of confusion and searching, all of these experiences have been contributing to your understanding of yourself and the world. Your psyche has been gathering information, developing skills, and preparing you for your authentic expression, even when you couldn't see the pattern. Jung identified several key indicators that you're moving toward authentic purpose as an intuitive introvert. First, you begin to trust your intuition more than external authority. You stop looking for permission from others to pursue what calls to you. You start making decisions based on your inner knowing, rather than on what makes logical sense or what others expect from you. This might mean leaving a secure job to pursue something uncertain but meaningful. It might mean saying no to opportunities that look good on paper but don't feel right in your gut. It might mean following a creative impulse, even when you can't explain why it matters to you. Second, you develop what Jung called a relationship with the unconscious. You begin to pay attention to your dreams, your synchronicities, your creative impulses, your spiritual experiences. You start to understand that these aren't random occurrences, but communications from the deeper levels of your psyche about your authentic path. You might start keeping a dream journal and noticing patterns in your dreams. You might begin to pay attention to the books, movies, or ideas that capture your imagination. You might notice synchronicities, meaningful coincidences that seem to be guiding you in a particular direction. You might have spiritual experiences or moments of profound insight that clarify your direction. Third, you begin to integrate your shadow, the parts of yourself that you've been rejecting or hiding. For intuitive introverts, this often means accepting your intensity, your sensitivity, your need for depth, your inability to be satisfied with superficial pursuits. You stop trying to be more normal and start embracing your psychological complexity. This might mean accepting that you need more alone time than most people. It might mean acknowledging that you can't pretend to care about things that don't matter to you. It might mean embracing your emotional sensitivity instead of trying to toughen up. It might mean accepting that you see the world differently and that this difference is a gift, not a flaw. Fourth, you develop what Jung called a transcendent function, the ability to bridge opposites within yourself and in your work. You learn to be both practical and visionary, both grounded and mystical, both individual and universal. This integration allows you to translate your deep insights into forms that others can understand and benefit from. This is perhaps the most crucial skill for intuitive introverts who want to make their purpose practical and sustainable. You learn to honor your inner vision while also developing the practical skills to manifest it in the world. You learn to communicate your insights in language that others can understand. You learn to balance your need for authenticity with the requirements of making a living. Jung also emphasized the importance of what he called active imagination for intuitive introverts seeking their purpose. This involves consciously engaging with the images, symbols, and scenarios that arise from your unconscious. Instead of dismissing these as mere fantasy, you learn to dialogue with them, to explore their meaning, to allow them to guide you toward your authentic expression. Many intuitive introverts discover their purpose through this process of active imagination. They might have recurring dreams about teaching, which eventually leads them to develop educational programs. They might be drawn to certain symbols or archetypes, which eventually informs their artistic work. They might have visions of future possibilities, which eventually guides their innovative projects. You might try this yourself. Set aside time for quiet reflection and allow your mind to wander. Pay attention to the images, ideas, or scenarios that capture your imagination. Don't judge them or try to make them practical, just explore them with curiosity. What themes keep appearing? What possibilities excite you? What visions inspire you? These might be clues from your unconscious about your authentic direction, but Jung warned about several traps that intuitive introverts often fall into on their journey toward purpose. The first is what he called inflation, becoming so identified with your insights or visions that you lose touch with practical reality. You might become convinced that you're meant to save the world or that you have access to ultimate truth, which can lead to grandiosity and disconnection from others. This trap is particularly dangerous for intuitive introverts because your insights often are profound and your visions often are important. But when you become inflated, you lose the humility and groundedness necessary to actually manifest your gifts in the world. You might become preachy, arrogant, or dismissive of others who don't share your vision. The second trap is what he called deflation, becoming so overwhelmed by the magnitude of what you're perceiving that you conclude you're not capable of expressing it. You might feel like your insights are too complex, too advanced, too important for someone like you to handle. This can lead to paralysis and self-doubt. This trap is equally dangerous because it prevents you from even attempting to express your gifts. You might have profound insights, but convince yourself that you're not qualified to share them. You might have important contributions to make, but decide that you're not smart enough, experienced enough, or credentialed enough to make them. The third trap is what he called premature expression, trying to share your insights before you've fully integrated them yourself. Intuitive introverts often feel urgency to communicate what they're discovering, but Jung observed that premature expression often dilutes or distorts the message. This might manifest as starting a blog or a business before you've fully developed your ideas. It might mean trying to teach others before you've mastered the material yourself. It might involve sharing your work before it's ready, leading to criticism or rejection that discourages you from continuing. The path to authentic purpose for intuitive introverts requires what Jung called holding the tension between vision and reality, between inspiration and manifestation, between individual insight and collective service. You must learn to honor your inner knowing while also developing the practical skills to express it effectively. You must trust your unique perspective while also remaining open to feedback and collaboration. This means developing both your intuitive gifts and your practical skills. It means learning to communicate your insights in language that others can understand. It means building the business skills, technical skills, or social skills necessary to bring your vision into reality. It means finding the balance between staying true to your vision and adapting it to meet the needs of others. Jung believed that intuitive introverts who successfully navigate this journey become what he called cultural creatives, individuals who help society evolve by bringing new possibilities into manifestation. They become the bridge between where humanity is and where it's going. They become the translators of unconscious wisdom into conscious understanding. Your struggle with purpose isn't a problem to be solved, it's a calling to be answered. Your restlessness isn't a flaw to be fixed, it's a signal that you're meant for something beyond the ordinary. Your inability to be satisfied with conventional meaning isn't a limitation, it's a superpower that allows you to access and express levels of reality that most people never even know exist. The world needs what you have to offer, even if it doesn't know how to ask for it yet. Your purpose is to bring through something that doesn't yet exist, to see possibilities that others can't perceive, to bridge realities that seem separate. This is why it feels so hard and so essential at the same time. Trust the process. Trust your inner knowing. Trust that your unique psychological structure is perfectly designed for the contribution you're meant to make. Your purpose will emerge when you're ready to receive it and express it authentically. Until then, embrace the journey of becoming who you truly are. Remember that every moment of confusion, every period of searching, every experience of restlessness is preparing you for your ultimate expression. Your purpose isn't separate from your journey. It's emerging through your journey. The very struggles that feel like obstacles are actually the raw material from which your authentic contribution will be forged.